Good evening, good evening. This is the Servant Leader Speaks. It's good to be back with you so soon. We have a special broadcast this evening after the Prime Minister's announcement at the mini rally for the FNM. We're going to talk about it, of course, tonight. I have the Deputy Leader of the BCP on with me tonight, Cornelius McKinney, and he's going to be joined. We're going to be talking about the issues, and we are just going to freelance tonight, right? No script, and so give us some latitude. We're going to talk for about 45 minutes and talk about those issues. But before we go, let's pray, and then we're going to get right into this discussion. Could you bow your heads with me? Father, we thank you for your goodness, your grace for this day, the 23rd day of January. We pray that the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable to you, you who are our strength and our Redeemer. And welcome back, those who are joining us online. We do appreciate you coming online with us to be able to get into the discussion that we will have tonight. It appears, Cornelius, that the Prime Minister has rang the bell. The Prime Minister has rang the bell. It appears last night what was supposed to be a town meeting for Central New Providence turned into an F&M rally. The Prime Minister, by the time he was finished speaking, announced that he is launching the campaign for the victory.
Well, that's really good news. That's good news for a lot of Bahamians, because a lot of Bahamians want election now. They're like, we can't take much more of this foolishness.
Okay, so the BCP, we released a statement earlier today in terms of our take on that we welcome the start of this campaign.
Right. In fact, the BCP started campaigning from January 2nd, 2020. So we've been campaigning.
We've been on the ball. That's a little over, 21 days or so. We've been in campaign mode. We know that we are almost ready. And when I say that, it means we simply are on the final or the last phase of the preparation for our blueprint for governance, Mandate 2022. And so we're about ready to go in that regard. Our website is up. Our website has platform issues, and we have really just set ourselves in that mode.
Yeah, we've been preparing from last year to start campaigning from early this year. So the Prime Minister's announcement comes as no surprise to us. We've been prepared for it. Like I said, a lot of people welcome the news. They're like, hey, we want election. What's interesting is the Prime Minister not so long ago announced that he has another 7 years. Like he himself is cutting it down to one more year.
One more year.
Yeah.
Well, see, what I think, and as you say, a lot of people kind of welcome if he is trying to call for early elections anytime soon, but because of the fact that all of the things that are going on with the increase of VAT, with the increase in the proposed increase in national insurance, the increase on almost every fee across the board, I am told that people, and I ran into an enumerator, I think it was, from the Inland Revenue, who they are now going house to house to be able to collect property tax in all of these areas where these houses are probably little under $100,000. So I do believe, as you say, that people are ready for an election to give fresh mandate to those persons who want to come forward, who want to ask the payment people to give them the opportunity to govern.
Yeah, we know that FNM doesn't have the money to campaign for 2 years. Political parties just simply don't do that.
Okay.
They didn't have it last election. Certainly they don't have enough money to campaign for 2 years. So obviously there is going to be a short run. Either he's testing the waters to see people's response, and then he'll just back off and stick with 2022.
With the schedule.
Yeah, but the most likely scenario is that there's more bad news coming about the economy. I've been telling people before the last election that if the government continues on the rate that they're going, the government will have to lay off 3,000 of its workers, because the government will simply no longer be sovereign. Once the national debt is approaching $9 billion. And when it was at $6 billion, the government was having a real struggle in paying it. So now they're paying interest on another $3 billion. And so you have to ask, where is that money coming from? But we know that extra money is coming from VAT, but it's still not enough. The government has not balanced the budget from they've been in office. And
you're just talking about this
government, yeah. Okay. But if you go look back for the last 27 years,
no one has balanced the budget.
No, it's not been balanced since I think it was 92. 92 was the last time the Bahamas government's budget was balanced. But we have a government that's been there for 2 years. The first year you would give them some slack because they didn't really know what all was done. A lot was hidden. But if you're now in charge of the finances and in a year you can't uncover all of the debt, everything is hidden, then I would just have to say that you're incompetent. So when you go into your second year and you still cannot balance the budget, then that's where you move into incompetent. Like I say, we could give them some leeway for the first year. The first 6 months was just kind of, let's figure out what's going on. Let's figure out how much debt the country has. Let's figure out where we're going to generate revenue. That would have been 6 months, and then it would have been the last 6 months of the year. So by the end of the first year, the government should have had a handle on its debt.
Well, that means you have to know what you are looking for.
Yes.
When you're getting into the treasury, the budget, you have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, you do a forensic audit. That's simple enough. We have accountants that specialize in it, Bahamian accountants. So when you get into your second year and you're still struggling and you're not balancing the budget, and then when you get to the end of the second year and you're still struggling and you're hundreds of millions of dollars short. And I'm talking about the hurricane. I'm talking about prior to that.
Right, yes,
hundreds of millions of dollars short. You have a problem. You just don't know what you're doing.
Well, I think, as you're saying, the fact that they may not have know what they're looking for, and the fact is they don't know how to fund it, because they did identify what they perceived that the PLP left in place in terms of money owing, some of the monies or bills that they could not see, that the indebtedness. Right. So now, as you say, having come 24 months, we're now going into the third year.
The third year, yes.
By May, it'll be the third year. If by now the only solution is to borrow money to make up the operational cost, then obviously, as you say, they may not know what they're doing. They need to be able to raise revenue to be able to cover what the operational cost, rather than every time you look at a shortfall, we have to go with another loan.
Yeah, it's like it's a large boulder going down a hill. It's only going to pick up momentum. And so that's the situation that they're in. And the solution is...
In regards to the debt.
In regards to the debt, right. So the solution is, let's tax the people more. Let's add fees. Everything they do is taking from the people. So the people are living poorer. This is the poorest Bahamians have been since the 1950s.
Wow.
I'm talking about economically, the country has gone back 60 years and is still retreating.
You're talking about the cost of living or just the way of life?
The standard of living.
The cost of living.
Okay. And people will say, it's not bad, it's not bad. No, the reality, it is very bad.
It's very bad.
It is very bad. People have had to adjust their lives, and then they keep adjusting, and they keep cutting back and cutting back. There's a certain level of stress that comes with that. And the persons who hit the most are the poor, the elderly,
the poorest,
and the children. The poorest, they suffer the most. And so you have a government that says it's the people time, we care about the people, but the people are suffering. It's just very few persons at the top. Less than 10% of the population is doing well. The other 90% is poorer. You can ask the average person on the street. People are struggling more than ever. I said since the 1950s. That is the reality.
Let me ask you a question. When it comes to the responsibility of a government, what should be the responsibility of the government? What are the roles? What should they be doing? What should we be expecting from them to do? I mean, we're talking about they make roads, infrastructure, handle or manage the economy. What do you think they should actually be doing? Because sometimes we have unrealistic expectation of what the government should do, and sometimes the government overreach in regards to what it's doing in our lives. What should they be doing?
First of all, we have to get rid of the notion that the government's main focus is to solve problems.
Okay.
If your whole life is centered around solving problems, when do you start to live? So you need to solve the problems and move on.
Just holding fires.
Yeah, just you're putting out the fires. You need to find out why these fires keep being lit. And you put the fires out, now you can focus on creating a future. Do you see any plan that's creating a future for the next generation, or even creating a future for those of the adults now? There is no plan. There is no plan. It is just constantly borrowing and taxing the people. There is no plan. What is the plan to pay off the national debt? When does this bloodletting of the people stop? When is it the government eases up on its taxes, its customs duty, its fees? Do you see anything in the works that's going to slow it down and stop it so that people can just relax and get a breath of fresh air? So there is no plan. And so that's where the BCP comes in, because when you read our blueprint, you will see plans clearly laid out to solve all of our economic issues, to get the country out of debt in less than 3.5 years. I'm talking about a zero debt for the government.
Now, people want to know, how are we going to do that?
And right now, Bahamians have been beaten down so much that they cannot even imagine themselves living without loans. And they certainly cannot imagine the government living without loans. But the BCP has plans where the Bahamian people don't have to borrow, where the government doesn't have to borrow. And it goes right back to the trillions of dollars in natural resources that God has placed in this country. This is a very wealthy country, but you don't see it on the surface because the government restricts its own citizens from sharing in the commonwealth.
So it is not only that we have natural resources, but also we need a government to manage the natural resources, to make sure that a sovereign wealth fund is created, so that the distribution of the wealth goes to all of the persons. We're talking about what? Making wealth common across the board.
Common, where we alleviate poverty in the nation. We have enough natural resources that there does not have to be any poor persons in the Bahamas. And the BCP has the plan to bring these these resources to fruition. So the question I ask is...
And that means, you say that all the time in regards to how do we eliminate the taxation of persons, of the Bahamian people, based on the management or correct management of the natural resources.
Right. Can you imagine Bahamians living with no customs duty? That if you go to America, Miami, Fort Lauderdale to shop, and you come back with your 5 duffel bags full, that you come to customs and there's nothing to declare, you don't pay any customs duty whatsoever? Can Bahamians even imagine that? And can you imagine you go in the supermarket and you buy a grocery and you don't pay any VAT? But we have a plan to bring that about using the natural resource. I say to people, look, let's say that you have a piece of land and you strike this gold in your land. You're digging to plant a coconut tree and you hit metal and you have it analyzed and it's gold. And so you say, okay, I can't plant a coconut tree. Then you just cover it back up with the dirt. And then you say, you have some scientists come and estimate that you have $60 billion worth of gold on your property.
Yes.
And you sit back in your house, your power is off, the electricity is off, you barely have food to eat, and you say, I have $60 billion worth of gold that I'm sitting on. But you don't have nothing to eat. You can't even pay your light bill. What do you think the gold is there for?
And what is interesting as you relate to that scenario is this: with the gold on your land, and we have much natural resources.
Yes.
We're prepared to bring in foreign joint venture capital.
Right.
In order to allow the Bahamian-led business to actually not exploit, but use and manage the resources to be able to empower the people. Because that man who's got gold but don't have equipment to dig it out, he can bring in that foreign capital to joint venture. Now, nobody is coming here just to go ahead and take that gold, but we're going to make sure that Bahamians are empowered by bringing in the foreign capital. We're going to lax central bank's rules in terms of bringing in foreign capital to be able to finance it. Of course, the government is going to provide some regulation to make sure that Bahamian companies aren't manipulated, because we're going back to the days of Bahamianization.
Yes.
Spencer Linden says, we want to make Bahamians rich, so we're not going to let people just come in like with foreign direct investment, but they're going to be part of working with Bahamians.
We have to put a total stop to foreigners mining our natural resources.
Okay.
It should never be mined by foreigners. It should only be Bahamians. If there is an industry and Bahamians are not skilled in it, then Bahamians can bring in consultant. But the principal owners of the company has to be Bahamians so that the profits does not leave the country. If you want to take Atlantis, for example, I don't know if Atlantis is making $1,000 profit a year or $1 billion profit a year. But what I do know is whatever it's making is going out of the Bahamas.
Yes.
But if you now have our natural resources, which is the ownership, the birthright of every Bahamian citizen. So if we have our natural resources and you have a foreigner come and let's say natural gas, for example, let's say a foreign company comes and they're taking out $30 billion in natural resources a year in natural gas. And let's say they give the government $100 million a year. So the government feels, we have $100 million we didn't have before. But the foreigners getting $30 billion. Why can't we keep the $30 billion in the Bahamas?
It's almost like peanut shell, not even the peanut.
Not even the shell, the husk off the shell.
Oh my God.
And that's what we're settling for. So we have to understand that every natural resource is the birthright of the Bahamian. Every Bahamian. So it is not sufficient for a foreign company to come to the Bahamas and create 300 jobs. That's 300 Bahamians that benefit from the natural gas, them and their families. So let's say that's 900 people benefiting. No, the natural gas is for the 400,000 Bahamians. So you have to come up with a way, not just to create jobs, but that if for all the natural gas that's mined, every Bahamian citizen is entitled to a portion of it. That's where the sovereign wealth comes from. And our proposal is that the government gets a minimum of 30% of all natural resources.
Where those joint venture businesses
That's where the joint ventures come in, and that's where Bahamians get the funding. And then the government can also do funding to Bahamians as well.
Yeah. So they don't necessarily have to get foreign direct or joint venture.
Right. And then the government also have to remove the restrictions from Bahamians getting loans outside of the Bahamas. The central bank regulations prohibits Bahamians from getting loans. So if you get a consortium of Bahamians, that let's say there's a Bahamian who's in charge of Exxon at their main office. Let's say he's in Dubai working for Exxon. He's the vice president regional. So he can come to the Bahamas and run natural gas or oil exploration. So something like that, we could bring in a Bahamian. If a Bahamian does not have the expertise, we can send them off to train. We can bring in consultants. But the point
we can import the expertise.
We can import the expertise. But the point is for the companies to be owned by Bahamians, for a minimum of 30% to go to the government, and the government is responsible now for distributing it to all of the Bahamian people, whereby the Bahamians every month or every quarter can look forward to a check or a direct deposit into their account from the sale of all natural resources. And that's the way that the BCP plans, so that Bahamians can now supplement their income, they can supplement their retirement from the natural resources. Because again, the Bahamians are getting less than 1% of the natural resources.
In terms of operation, because we're not, and I realize this, and for those of you who are joining you, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Ali McIntosh, Cornelius McKinney, the servant leadership of the BCP, and we're talking directly as a result of the Prime Minister announcing that they have started the campaign, which means we may go an early election. If not an early election, at least we've rang that bell, and we're going to move towards it. The Bahamas Constitution Party is ready to go into election, and we are going to do it. So we will, over the next few months and into that election, talk about the plans that we have to empower the Bahamian people.
Right, and that's what we have to lift up the grassroots. See, because somebody made a statement recently in reference to the government who said they're for the poor people. And so the question is, okay, we've had this majority rule for 40 years. So if you're for the poor, why is it after 40 years we're still poor? In fact, the majority of Bahamians now becoming poorer. And it's a direct reflection of the government. And so we have to move away from business as usual. Bahamians are suffering, but they're holding on to their party. So you're holding on to a sinking ship. The form of government that's been brought forward by the PLP and the FNM. It's a sinking ship, and the leaders of the parties are the problem. It isn't the PLPs themselves. It isn't the FNM. It is the people who have come forth as leaders. You saw Fred Mitchell recently announced that about 75% of their candidates in 2022 are going to be new people. So what's wrong with the ones that you felt were these are the people you said could lead the country? That's what you said 2 years ago when it was general election. You said these people could lead the country. Now you're going to fire 75% of them? Why would you fire 75% of the people who could do a good job?
They were just selling us that story.
Yes.
Especially if some of them have been involved, and
Right.
some of them have been even smeared.
Right. So
why would you offer them to
Right.
us, and now you are not offering them to us?
Right, so you're
you do have a
offering them
point.
last election, you're offering this group of people, you're saying these 39 people are the best people to lead the country. Now, just merely 2 years later, you're saying you're going to get rid of 75%, and you're going to bring in another set of people who are unskilled and untrained, untested. Why in the world would you do that? So it's obvious that you're fishing and you don't have any leadership in that party. And so, but I mean, you really got to go to the BCP website, bcpparty.org. You really have to go and take a look at some of the solutions.
And we only have snippets.
We have snippets.
We only have snippets until we release the entire blueprint.
The snippets that we have, the little hints here and there, is much more than the FNM manifesto and much more than anything the PLP, DNA, or anybody has brought forth.
Because it gives an all comprehensive
Right.
idea as to the work we intend to do. What is interesting in regards to how the BCP wishes to govern is the idea of the reconstruction of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Yes.
So we're reconstructing how we look at economics, how we look at the debt resolution, how we look at the management of the natural resources, how we look at even inspiring the people to aim for more. And so in those platform issues, which takes you to that page with mandating the snippets, it really gives a great concept of where we're going.
We've not even released 10% of our plan.
Not even 10%.
And already people are saying, well, your 10% is more than the PLP and the FNM are offering in the entire plan.
And tell them where this comes from. Tell them, I mean, in terms of, it's not just our ideas.
No. We could not have come up with the solutions. It is not in man. The Bible said it is not in man to order his own steps. And when God tells me that I can't even order my own step, I take his word at it and I believe him.
For that.
And so the Holy Spirit has brought forth solutions.
Yes, solutions.
Every problem in the Bahamas, the illegal immigration, the murders, the unemployment, the Holy Spirit has given us the solution, and we put it together in the blueprint for governing the Bahamas, and we make it available to the Bahamian people, so the Bahamian people can look at the plans that the BCP will implement in the country, and you'll see, you could just automatically look at the plans, you'll see just murder dropping, crimes dropping, and we saw a notice recently that there's an increase in home invasion, people being held up at gunpoint in their own home.
Yes,
that is someplace you should expect to be safe. So it's obvious that even the Minister of National Security does not have a plan to keep the Bahamian people safe.
Somebody online is asking, will we be offering ourselves in the next general election? This is, as Cornelius said, we have started, because we were planning all in last year, we started our campaign about the 2nd of January.
Yes.
And we are and will be offering an entire slate of candidates for the general election. As we said, we are in the final phase in formulating blueprint for governance, and really that final phase is simply in terms of how it will be presented. But in terms of the vision, in terms of the strategies, the mandate, those things have already been formulated. As Cornelius says, we've got divine mandate, we've gotten ethical wisdom from the Holy Ghost in regards to how we will manage the country, change some things. So we will be offering candies in terms of ourselves, the candidates, all over the next couple of weeks and months. We will be interviewing candidates. We're making a clarion call even now for persons to put themselves forward to qualify for BCP candidacy. We will not offer just anyone in terms of the candidacy.
We want people who live in the constituency to run in that constituency, and we want them to be approved by the people who live in that constituency.
To the greatest extent, as much as possible.
Right, we
can
don't want the party saying this is who we're putting in your constituency. For the large extent, we want the constituents to say this is somebody who's doing something in our community. This man or this woman, we know him, we know her. They come around, they help the poor, they come and cut our yard, they care about the people, they help the children. This is somebody who's doing good in our constituency. We want them to go to Parliament to represent us.
So it's interesting because the chairman and I was just talking earlier in regards to that, how we're going forward, and we've been in working and talking, and all day we've really been at it. We excited really about that announcement because we are ready to go. We were already getting in a trot in regards to the campaign, and so in terms of how we will monitor or put forward the candidates, we are looking for people who have been working.
Yes.
Have already been working, who've been part of the solutions in the community. I think what happens is leadership provides even greater incentives for people who have been working to put themselves forward. In addition to that, there is going to be some training coming out of the Josiah Institute for Leadership and Public Policy within the next 2 or 3 months, where persons interested in political life can get that training, can get that coaching, can get that certificate, and to be ready to go forward.
See, and that brings up the point of what is a servant leader. Now, Bahamian people have been duped into believing that a leader is a person who is very articulate in speech and who wears a suit and have a lot of money. That's who, for the most part, people see as a leader. But that quiet person, the one who's actually doing something to help people, the one who's encouraging people, motivating people, bringing solution to people's lives, that is the type of leadership we're looking for. Not just talkers and promises.
And politicians.
Right. You know how much promises that we have heard election after election, and for the most part, 80% of them are never fulfilled.
I heard a story, or I read a story of a journalist who indicated how many promises was made by this administration.
Okay.
And the fact of the 170 something, I think it was.
I think less than 20%.
I mean, they said 14, not 14%. 14 of those
out of 100 plus. So wow.
Yes, and that obviously,
that's about 8 or 9%.
I mean, and we can't go there. A lot of what we are talking about has been right before us in terms of could be done, but have not been done.
Yes.
Based on how the leadership of the parties that manage the economy, what they think. I mean, how we're going to empower the people, because that is a very big part of what the BCP is going to be doing in terms of how do we inspire, how do we push forward, how we create hope in the community and value for who they are. I mean, you were telling me earlier about a story. I mean, you mightn't have to relate all of it, but in terms of how people look at themselves and what they value.
The Bahamian people have just been beaten down so much over the last 20 years that their expectation of themselves is so low. Their expectation of their leaders are so low. How many Bahamians see themselves owning a jet and being able to afford it, maintain it? How many Bahamians see that? People all over the world are doing it. So why do Bahamians don't see themselves in that position? Why don't Bahamians see themselves owning a resort like Atlanta, something to that extent, or owning an airline like Southwest Airline? We just look at what we see in our country, and that limits us. And then our government tells us, first of all, that they're doing the best that they can, which is a big lie.
You think they limit what we think we can accomplish?
Right. So they set our standards so low, and then they put it as part of our educational system. So from the kids that are in grade 2 and 3, they're already telling them this is the most you can expect. And they keep using the phone, oh, look what this little country do. But we don't have little brains.
Probably we have leadership that have self-esteem issues. And I'm not just talking about the people, just the whole point of the administration.
What they are Machiavellian. I would encourage anybody to go on eBay and look up a book called The Prince by Machiavelli. It is a political strategy book. And every prime minister in the Bahamas follows this book like their Bible.
Oh, wow.
So any Bahamian could go buy the book called The Prince by Machiavelli, and you can read it and you can tell step by step how the government is going to operate, because every prime minister that the Bahamas has had, including this prime minister, are following the principles in that book.
Okay.
You could read them like a book if you read the book. And that's why I could tell you what actions the government's going to take, and when they do something, here are some of the reasons why, because the book tells them what to do. One of the first things it tells them to do is when they become in power, the first thing you do is get rid of the people who put you in power. Because if they put you in power, they could remove you. So that's why when you see a new prime minister comes up, all of the major stalwart members, he sends them off, make them an ambassador. He gets them out of the country so that they can't vote, so they can't influence the people in the country. And then he starts replacing the strong leaders with weak people who just go along with him.
Who better be yes man, yes
right.
man, yes
and
man.
that's why you can't find a strong deputy prime minister. That's why you can't find a strong minister of national security. You can't find a strong minister of national defense. They're all weak people because the prime minister picks weak people because he doesn't want any competition.
You know, I love that what you say, because I've always thought about, and I've done a lot of recruiting in terms of leadership. I always look for people who may be smarter than me, who
So
got
do I.
potential, because of the fact that what I lack, you will have. You will bring to the table.
Yeah.
Because if we want a comprehensive presentation for everybody, you find somebody who can do it even better.
When you see me running a company, I look for people who are smarter than I am. I'm even willing to pay them more than I pay myself, because I know the smarter people are gonna, and with good attitude and character, they're gonna be the one to propel my company forward.
Yes.
And that should be the same thing the government should be doing. The prime minister should be seeking advisors who are smarter than him, and pick the areas. Somebody in finance, somebody in social services, someone in commerce, somebody in national security. He should be picking people smarter than him. He shouldn't be intimidated.
Well, one thing about servant leadership people have to understand, and people sometimes think that servant leadership is weak.
Yeah, that's the concept. That's the perception that people have.
But servant leadership believe in succession.
Yeah.
That the reason you, as a servant leader, or I as a servant leader, will pick someone smarter or someone younger, because we need to train somebody to take our place.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to die, you don't want to leave office, you don't want any number of things to happen, and there is nobody who is going to take over. There has to be some training of some people, some mentoring of persons behind you. So that's why you got to do. And when you got to do that, because when you look at you need some people that when you are gone, not even gone, that even you can sit down and says, go ahead and let me see how you do it. And that has to happen, because if we can do what we have to do and sit down and allow the generation to operate before we are dead. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Don't wait till you're dead before someone take over, but that you train them to be able to do the work, and they can participate, and they can have your wisdom while you are still here.
And then you give them the latitude to use their creativity.
Yes.
See, that's one thing that's lacking in the Bahamian culture is creativity. That's why
The culture of leadership.
Leadership, right. That's why you don't see Bahamians inventing anything. That's why you see Bahamians being consumers. But if we have one God, then God has given everybody the same level of intelligence in every country. So if Israel can invent things, and America can invent things, and England can invent things, Bahamians should be inventing. We should be coming up with new products, because we have the same brain. When Bahamians go off to university in London or America, Bahamians graduate at the top. But yet they come home and they don't invent anything. They just get a job and they just live from paycheck to paycheck. Where is that zeal? Where is that drive? And we live in a country with policies that kills people's dream. And so, I mean, you saying it, the point of leadership, the point of governance ought to inspire its whole community to dream. You said earlier that the culture almost of leadership beats down people to a fact that they don't want to dream. They just want a job. Let me just pay my bills, pay my mortgage, and I do that till I retire. People have been beaten down to accept that, but that's not their potential. I believe the greatest purpose of a leader is to bring out the best in everybody that they're leading, even if that best is better than the leader.
Got to be. I have some sons, I mean spiritual sons, sons of mentored in youth work that have gone far further than I would ever go, or I could go. And I like that, because I can say that's my son. I produced him, and I love that. I have a son. I remember saying when we were in youth work, I said, if the drug dealer could quit his job to sell drugs, certainly some of us can quit our job to do youth work. When he came to me in my office some years ago, he said, Sister Mark, I'm planning to quit my job. I want to do this full time.
Right.
And he went on to form a boys organization. He is one of he's now in the United States. I mean, he left school, couldn't read hardly, but he went back to college. He has a ministry that is so strong and powerful in the United States. I'm going to call his name Ricardo Miller.
Okay.
Ricardo Miller Children's Ministry. He's now doing leadership. When he said that to me, I know that I was making some impact.
Yeah.
And when I see how far he's gone, and I realize, boy, I mean, you're going further than I can ever go.
That is living your potential.
Yes.
I
And
mean,
we want to keep doing that.
Right. I keep saying that nobody on this planet should go back to God not having fully developed the talent that he put in there.
The potential, yes.
Right. And we have leadership in the country, and we've had it for probably the last 40 years, that have tried to hold you back because they're afraid of competition. They're afraid of we're not getting the best that Bahamians have.
They think you're going to take their job.
Yeah, Bahamians are not even living 10% of their potential.
Wow.
You have to, if you look around in our country, can you say, oh, the Bahamas is doing the best it can?
No, I don't think so.
No, we're not even 10% of the way there. And we have to open up the country so that the potential of all of the people can we need to just rise as a people. We need to excel. We need to grow. We need to develop. We need to create.
That's why servant leadership is so important.
Right. And the government is supposed to, you asked me about the role of government. The role of government, and when you think of governing, is not to control. The government is supposed to set the framework by which people, businesses can flourish.
Yes.
So I don't see the government role as creating the jobs. I see the government creating the environment and the regulation for the citizens to create the jobs.
The opportunity.
Because the citizens can create 100 times more jobs than the government can. The government have a limit on how many people they can hire. But the citizens don't have that limit. You could start 10,000 companies, and those 10,000 companies can employ much more than the government ever can. So when you have a nation and the government is the major employer, you have a nation that's going to be overly taxed because the government has to tax.
Almost lazy.
Lazy.
You're just hiring people.
Right.
When you can actually put them out to actually produce more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if the government has $500 million, they could go build an airport. They said, okay, they're going to spend $450 million on an airport. There are policies that they have where they give out loans. I would much rather spread the loan out among enterprising people. And if 10 persons start a business, what's the likelihood of success? Probably half will fail. But that's just a reality. You have to live with the reality. But you always have a contingency plan. But you don't know which business is going to succeed. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
You do not know which idea is going to succeed. And that's why in our educational system under the BCP, that's why we introduce so many electives in the primary school and in the high school so that people can have more opportunities to explore other areas so that they can see what they're good at. But as it relates to calling the bell. I mean, what is the concern of Bahamian people? What's on the Bahamian people's mind? You think the number one thing on Bahamian people's mind is election? People struggling to pay their bills, to feed their children, to get a job. That's what people are struggling. People are hurting. People need to get up and be able to take care of themselves and then be able to plan a future. You cannot plan a future if you're just trying to get a meal today.
But you said something very powerful as we have been discussing. Mm-hmm. The point of leadership is to produce opportunities.
Yes.
And we're at a place where we don't have the opportunities that we should have.
Right.
And so now election is going to have to be on their mind because they're going to have to elect a leadership that's prepared to empower them.
Yep.
And so I think that's where we're going. And that's what the BCP is offering the Bahamian people, a leadership that is prepared to empower the community, that they don't have to operate in this dog eat dog, that's what it's called, where every concern is all about how I can get mine.
It's survival.
It's survival. That's the mode.
A survival mentality.
You know what it's to live in survival mode all the time?
Your life. And then you train your children to be in survival mode.
Which means you can hurt people. You can take from people because why?
You get desperate.
I got to get mine.
Yeah. And I've seen desperation after hurricane. I've seen desperation where people are just grabbing for me, for my family, for me and I. Whereas, I mean, how the hurricane was handled, right? If you look at the BCP and its plan for hurricane preparedness and how we plan to use some of the sovereign wealth fund,
yes,
for a time of natural disaster, our prime minister shouldn't be catching a ride with the U.S. Air Force. Our prime minister should have his own plane. NEMA should have his own plane, should have his own boats, should have his own supplies. It should not be that the British are the first to an island hit by a hurricane. Our defense force should have been the first there.
Well, that's why, and we'll discuss that later, in regards to our plan for military service in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. That's a whole big subject that we will talk about, but it is a plan how we not only secure our borders, but how we also provide the capacity and the resources and the personnel to be able to protect ourselves.
We knew that the hurricane was coming directly at Abaco. It didn't like we wake up one morning and it's going to be here in 2 minutes. we had weeks. We had weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So we should have had helicopters, our own, vessels, building materials, supplies, doctors, nurses, on standby, engines running, waiting for that hurricane to pass, and then we immediately swoop into Abaco. That should have been the plan. So we have the natural resources to create the resources to take care of the country's needs, and that's where we have failed as a nation, and we cannot continue. You cannot keep putting the same PLP F&M over and over and over. You know the results. You have seen the result. It is suffering. It is going backwards. It is poverty. It is violence. It is crime. It is murder.
And it's
it is
also
unemployment.
Just lack of planning. As you said, when we talk about the reconstruction of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, obviously planning for everything has to be in there.
Everything.
Natural disasters.
Including incidental and unforeseen things.
But hurricanes aren't unforeseen. We have them every year.
We have at least, every year. It's not it's nothing new. That's why I'm saying we should have.
It's only a matter of when.
Under the BCP government, we have a plan to have 3 years of food stored up, dry goods and canned goods, where we always have 3 years and we're continuously rotating them. So even if hurricanes are like for a month in a row, we can't get food from America, we have 3 years worth of supplies that we can feed ourselves for 3 years of dry good, of fresh water, canned goods. So
that sounds like the Joseph plan.
Okay, so these are things, like I said, we shouldn't be waiting on America to bring us. They have to clear customs, and people are piling up these stuff on the door. These should have already been in the Bahamas, waiting to be deployed
for the purpose.
And when you look at like how the airport was shut down in Abaco, and then they restricting flights, you could get a trailer that heises up and put up an antenna, and you have a mobile control tower. We should have these in the island where wherever a hurricane hits, you throw this, a truck pulls up this container onto a boat. You go as soon as the all clear, you're putting a control tower. So because you're gonna have rescue flights coming in, and it's the control tower's damaged. Oh, we can't bring in any planes. Oh, we have to let one in at a time. We have to slow it down. Not let one at a time, but we have to let one every hour. What I'm saying is there are mobile control towers that you could purchase, $750,000.
But something you say, and it's interesting, there's something you said. It is the fact that government is not about control.
No, it's not about controlling
and I
people.
believe the management of Hurricane Dorian was all about control.
It's control.
How do we
And when you have control, you get a bottleneck. You
get
a bottleneck, and supplies come to us to stand still or screeching halt. And we've seen that, and we had walk-in prior to that, and we didn't learn from that. We made the same mistakes.
Well, you know what they say about doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Right.
So we must, in our going forward and how we present to the nation, is not only ethical wisdom in terms of how to do what to be done, and the fact that we have enlisted the support of divine wisdom to bring these matters and bring these issue and the solution to these problems to the fore, but that we're prepared to engage the people as part of the solution.
The people are part of the solution. The church is a part of the solution. Everybody is a part of the solution.
We're going to move the oppression. We're going to lift up when it comes to leadership.
Remove oppression. Remove oppression. Remove victimization. And like I want to say this. Let's look at Dorian, right? And you keep hearing Well, let's go back to Joaquin. All you heard, oh, this is the worst hurricane we had. Oh, this is the worst hurricane. Now you have the hurricane. Oh, this is the worst. We never experienced nothing like that. It is not the magnitude of the hurricane that's the issue. The issue is your response.
The magnitude of the preparation.
Of the preparation and your response.
Yes.
Ultimately, they're going to up the hurricane ratings to beyond 5. Mm-hmm. It's evident that that's ultimately going to happen. So we have a category 6 coming. It isn't sufficient for the government to say, oh, we never had a category 6 before. Okay, so plan, worst case scenario, winds 250 miles per hour. Here's the potential for damage. Here's the potential for flooding.
Yes.
Here's the potential for loss of life. Now, what do? That's the thing that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to come up with plan and contingency plan and plan A and plan B and a plan to fall back on in case it's worse than even your projection.
Well, the projection, as you say, the contingency of your preparation, because if there is preparation for mobile launch, what the equipment you said just now, where you can pull it up on a truck and it's available,
a portable control tower, so that you can control the aircrafts coming. You know you're going to be flooded with aircrafts.
Yeah, people coming in here trying to help.
You're going to be flooded. You're going to have you could have 50 to 100 aircraft in one day. So you have to think that here's what's going to happen after we're hit by a hurricane. So the least you need to do is have the Defense Force have these mobile control towers and get it in there as soon as they get the all clear, get the airport up and running. That's one of the first things, so that you could get emergency help in there. We know this. We've been knowing this for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And you need to get the planes in, because the planes are going to get there quicker than the boats. Okay. And then you need to clear the harbor so that the boats can come in. We know this. So why? So I don't accept, oh, this is the worst hurricane we ever had. I don't accept that at all. Yeah,
and there's another excuse too in regards to we didn't know it would be this bad. But preparation would help. Will confront all of that.
Right. Nobody knows it's going to be this bad. But what do? We just like, oh, we don't have no plan.
No, but we only talk about what? As you say, once there's an all clear, and sometimes you don't even need all clear, because you know that there are people on the ground who need water. People on the ground who needs help, people on the ground who needs to be assisted, who've been injured, especially with a tidal surge like it was in Abaco. So if you know these things has to happen, obviously when you train military, it's the what? Go right in there. The U.S. Coast Guard came right in and helped.
The British were there. They were there first.
Yes, and as I'm told, in fact, they started heading towards this way, knowing that once
you just stay on the outskirts of the storm, and as the storm moves, you're moving in as well. You're going to give immediate assistance as soon as possible. Well, and that's the plan. That's the plan that the BCP has. Immediate assistance as soon as possible, because the government knew how many people did not evacuate. The government knew how many people said, although the government said, y'all get out of Abaco, everybody leave. Although the government said it, they still knew how many thousands were still there. And they're still responsible, even if the people were negligent, whatever the case is, or they didn't have any money to leave, whatever the case is, they're your citizens and they are there. And 2 weeks before the hurricane hit, the meteorologist, I don't remember his name, but he's known as a hurricane expert around the world, and he's a Bahamian.
Yes.
He said, based on what I see lining up, Grand Bahama and Abaco, it is going to be disastrous. That's what he said. So the government had been warned, and the people had been warned.
Yes.
And so the government should have prepared, and they fell down. The people should have evacuated. They didn't. But it doesn't matter. The point is, this is a situation that we're in. What is the solution? How do we give help? I mean, we're 5 months after the hurricane, the dome homes are not up. 5 months after the hurricane, human beings, loved ones are in trailers. Not just in Abaco. Yes. There's also a trailer in Grand Bahama too, with bodies in it.
Yeah, we talked about that. I talked about that yesterday on the servant leaders.
Where is the dignity in human life? Where is the dignity to the people who? If one of my loved one was missing, I would be. I don't understand. I don't understand why the Bahamian people are so calm about it and not demanding the release of these bodies. I do not understand, especially if I know I have a loved one missing and I know that there are bodies over there. I am gonna be day and night. My family could be in there. Yes. In that regard, we almost out of time, but in that regard, we released a petition today in regards to that the government must
immediately begin to identify and release the bodies to the family members. So it's on change.org. We shared it on Facebook. So if you go on Facebook, somewhere you're going to see it. If you go on our pages, you will be able to see it. We want people to sign the petition. We want to put the pressure on the government to do this, because it appears that they have, because they've made no date, it means they have no clear path as to how they will deal with this. So the petition is towards the government of the Bahamas, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Health, that this matter be fixed and remedied immediately, which is to identify those bodies, pass those remains on to the family where possible, and if persons who cannot be identified, that there should be a Christian burial, so those persons can be laid to rest. I think the level of intrepidation, the level of anxiety, post-traumatic stress in those communities, East End, Grand Bahama, Central, Abaco, under those kinds of conditions, because we have this issue going on. And so that petition, we want people to go online, take that petition, sign it, and share it. We don't want, it says 100 signatures, but we really need as many signatures as possible. We weren't able to change that, but just go ahead and sign the paper.
I just a couple of days ago, I saw a government official on YouTube. I don't know when it was recorded or when the statement was made, but I saw a government official on YouTube just a few days ago saying that Grand Bahama did not get do that bad. I'm serious. I know there's a family out east where 9 persons in that family died. You're saying Grand Bahama? Yeah, you're saying Grand Bahama didn't get doo-doo bad?
And East End was totally almost annihilated, smashed right up every house.
I know of more than 30 persons in the morgue in Grand Bahama
have not been released yet.
And yet the government said the official count is 9. So if you as the government have 30 bodies in a container, and a refrigerated container, and these bodies are frozen, how is it that you have not declared them dead? You think they're alive?
It's unconscionable.
Yeah, you
inhumane.
I don't get it. You
can't wrap your head around it, right?
They're in the custody of the government. 30 bodies in a container, and the government is saying,
in Grand Bahama.
Yeah, and the government saying, oh, as far as we know, only 9 persons. Yeah, it's now 11, so 11 persons officially have died. So for them to be in a container, a frozen container, a doctor would have to have signed a death certificate for them to go in there. That's like a morgue. So if they're in the morgue, some doctor had to sign a death certificate
for them to go.
And if a doctor's already signed it, the Prime Minister himself don't have to touch everybody. Every corpse. You don't have to touch every corpse for them to be officially dead. You have a doctor. Once a doctor declares a person dead, legally they are dead. And if the doctor then sign off on more than 30 persons in Grand Bahama, and the doctors have already said they're dead, how can the government now come and say it's only 11?
Folks, before we wrap up, and we see people from Grand Bahama that's on, thank you very much, Pastor Williams, in regards to your words of encouragement. But the fact is, regarding you saying people touching people and find out they're dead, there was a press conference in which the Prime Minister said that. He held the hand of the man in charge of NEMA and said, when I touch him and they're dead, then they're dead. So that is the words of this Prime Minister.
Only the Prime Minister could declare somebody's dead? It
appears so.
We have other doctors
and
who are equally qualified to declare somebody's dead. We have morticians, we have pathologists. We are behemoths trained.
Well, that is the reason why we are in the place we are at, where there's trailers in both Grand Bahama and Abaco. We know Kai Mills had a video, 2 or 3 videos talking about it. So now we are demanding by petition on change.org, go online our Facebook page, and we're circulated even now. Go and sign so that this government must take responsibility and begin the process of not only identifying but releasing these bodies from refrigerated containers, and give and allow the community to begin to grieve properly and heal properly. Either give them to the families to bury them, or the government itself must bury these people, take them off the face of this earth rather than rotting in containers, but to put them in the ground and give a Christian burial for them.